amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off on the Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been...
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I'm here today with Ezra Parter and Jackie K. We are going to talk Colorado Avalanche hockey on and off day. So that's always nice when we can sneak an episode in between some games. So we have plenty to talk about today. Thank you to the two of you for joining me. As usual, folks, if you like what you see and or hear, please like, subscribe, and share with your fellow Avalanche and hockey fans. And as usual, please turn on your alerts so that you know every single time we are live and direct. And last but not least, all of these live broadcasts are then available the day following our live broadcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that good nonsense. So please head on over and check out our extensive catalog. We've been doing this since the first week of the season, actually a couple weeks before the season started. And here we are today in kind of what is the last week, so to speak, of the regular season. So we have a pretty cool chronological episode portfolio that you can kind of listen back to and see just how far we've come as Avalanche fans and Avalanche faithful. But we had some news drop today. I'll just kind of run through what we're going to do. We're going to do a recap and a preview of some of the games kind of nearby. We're going to do our breakaway challenge and talk a little bit about one of the Avalanche's trade acquisitions and what that next contract might look like. And then at the very end of the show, as usual, we will end with our bold predictions, talk a little bit about some multiverse broadcasts with the Avs, and maybe touch on that Chris Wagner contract. Okay, there's my spiel. It's over. Let's start talking Avs hockey. We might have Evan join us soon as well. Mr. Managing Editor is running a little bit late, but he should be with us. But I'm going to send this one your way, Jackie. Ladies first. Losses to the Rangers and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Both of them hurt, but in different ways. Were the Avs outplayed in both contests is my question to you, Jackie.
Well, you'd look at the analytics and they'd say no, especially against Columbus. Again, they put up a ton of shots. It was like 47 or something again. Yeah. So I definitely don't think they got outplayed, but I think to me the Columbus game is similar to Montreal, where the opponent pretty much knew what they had to do to stop the Avs. They hold them onto the perimeter. They gave up a ton of shots, but how much of that was really all that dangerous? Maybe not so much.
Right.
So I think they capitalized, on a couple of their chances, and it was enough to hold the Avs down, which is sort of similar to Montreal. The Rangers game, I felt like was a bit different because obviously they're a good team, and so I think the composition of that game was a bit different. I think the Avs scored first, and then I just think the Rangers sort of chipped away, and I think they were playing better near the end of the game, and so then they got it to overtime, and then they won in the shootout, right? So to me, I think that one was more evenly matched, I guess I should say. So I don't think the Avs necessarily got outplayed in either, but in a way they kind of deserve to lose, both of them, I'd still say. So it just depends how you want to look at it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, and it kind of echoes what we heard from Jared Bednar on Altitude Radio this morning, because he was asked, Columbus, that feels like a game that would make you angry, and his response was more frustrated than angry, because when he took a look back at the tape, he felt like, the Avs kind of outchanced Columbus, and he even as well compared that game to the Montreal loss. And said, there was just kind of some things that didn't go our way, obviously. And then he also said, like you mentioned, we did enough to win, but we also did enough to lose. And I think that's the best way to put it in that Columbus game. Ezra, touch on those two contests and then touch a little bit on what I've now dubbed a Gorgasode, which is when Georgi loses his mind. But we saw that in Nashville. We saw Anonin come in and be solid. Should we be worried about that goaltending room?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. I just want to say quickly on the Columbus game specifically, like the Avs did produce high danger chances. They did like thoroughly outplay Columbus, I thought, overall. But that really the overall feeling factors in a lot of power play time when Colorado was dominating possession, obviously, because they're on the power play and generating chances, but not able to convert. And that's just something that without Valerian Nichushkin in the front, they're not putting things past goalies on the power play. It's a huge issue. One guy shouldn't make this big of a difference. I love Casey Middlestat, but having him on the power play is just not the same as having a net front presence like Val. They tried to get Lehkonen going in that place too, and it wasn't working. Val's so important, and he needs to get back healthy. It sounds like he'll join the team in Edmonton, so that's good news. Yes. At even strength, it was kind of an even contest, which is that's the problem, right? That's the problem. That's how they lose the game. You let Columbus hang around at even strength. You just can't do that. They outchanced them. They out generated as far as all the underlying stats go, but it just didn't they didn't dominate in the way that they should have.
Yeah.
New York, I loved that game. It was such a fun game. The Avalanche deserved to be in exactly the place they were, which is neck and neck with an amazing team. So it is what it is. But Nashville, we have to talk about Georgiev. He the puck over the glass thing that got him a penalty and got him pulled. That's just a genuine accident. Like he's just trying to throw the puck out of his net. It goes too high. He's like, oh no. And then Bednar's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think he probably would have pulled him anyway because, frankly, the 4 goals weren't good. You can make cases for each individual goal that he wasn't helped out enough in front of him, but we've been saying that all year. Mm-hmm. You can't keep coming up with the same excuse for the guy when other times and other players have been able to other times he and also other players have been able to overcome defensive lapses in the way that an NHL goalie is supposed to. So it's concerning. It's definitely concerning. But on the flip side, what I like about that game is we saw Anonin come in and pick him up, right? So pick up the pieces. And Georgiev had an off night, but Anonin had a great night. And then against Columbus, Anonin had kind of a rougher night, and maybe Georgiev could have come in and picked up the slack, but he wasn't called upon because it's a regular season game, and it wasn't worth pulling Anonin for a Columbus game. Frankly, they keep Georgiev rested. That makes more sense. So I'm not that concerned about the overall goalie room. I think they have each other's backs in this game proved that they have each other's backs when needed. Somebody is going to be able to come through. If we're expecting Georgiev to start every single game of a Stanley Cup run, that I think I'm concerned about. But I'm not concerned about Anonin coming in spot starts to make things work.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And Bednar mentioned that he had a conversation with the goaltenders about kind of displays, just the whole team in general, about displays of emotion that hurt your team. Which I'm with you. I felt like Georgiev kind of got a bad bounce of all things to be a goaltender and to try to get the puck out of your net and it goes careening into the crowd.
But you also can't put yourself in that position, right?
Exactly.
But didn't he get I missed exactly when that happened, but didn't he get an unsportsmanlike?
He did. Yes,
it wasn't delay of game though. So what was up with that?
Oh,
it was
because
it went into the crowd. Yeah, and it went
after the puck went in. Sorry, Adrian, we're both saying the same thing. But
okay. He did it as a reaction to getting scored on. Okay.
And we've seen him break sticks and kind of lose his mind in other scenarios. But I'm of the opinion it's just a display of emotion and a dude who's very passionate about it, what he does. And I think as long as these examples don't happen, he's okay. But it is when you end up putting a guy in the box. Your coach has no choice but to pull you. But I'm with you too, Ezra, and thinking he was getting the hook anyway. That wasn't really his game. And we saw Anonin kind of have his struggles as well. And, my dad is kind of the normal everyday Avalanche fan. I'm not a gatekeeper by any means, but there's some of us who kind of do a deeper dive than others. And I asked him today, I said, what's your biggest burning question about the Avalanche? And he said, I'm worried about the goaltending. Can it hold up against the powerhouse teams that can score. And the team he brought up was Edmonton. So Evan, the question is, and we've been talking a little bit about previews and recaps of what's happened, but the question to you is, should we be worried about the Avs goaltending room heading into the playoffs?
It's a tough one to ask, I think. I'm in agreement with Ezra that if you're expecting Georgiev to start every single game in regards to the Stanley Cup, that's going to burn him out, and that's going to cause some issues. And we've seen that already happen, from time to time in this regular season. Now, Anion looked great in his relief of Georgiev on Saturday against the Preds, but obviously Monday against Columbus was not a pretty one. But that was just not a pretty one, I think, for the team in general. Then rather than it just being on Anion, but it's going to be tough, and I think we kind of look at it a different way, just because of what we saw in 2022 with Kemper and Francouz. They, for lack of a better term, kind of turned into a 1A 1B in the playoffs, mostly out of necessity, not because Bednar was kind of wanting that to happen, but out of necessity. And credit to Pavel Francouz and whatnot, but those are some hard shoes to fill in the back end in particular, to be the backup goaltender. So when you think about trying to compare him with Anonin, there's not really a lot there, at least so far. And especially when you look at Kemper and Georgiev, there's if you ask who the Avs prefer, that's a split fan base right there. I feel like between the two.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The fans definitely are. I don't think that the coaching staff is by any means, but
you both bring this up, so I have a question.
Yeah.
Has Bednar ever started a different goalie in the playoffs by choice? Has it ever?
No.
Has he ever played the backup because he wanted to?
Maybe, actually. I think, because remember Game 4 of the Western Conference Final, Francouz was starting, but Kemper was healthy. He was backing him up.
Yeah, but I
still wasn't ready
in the eye.
Yeah.
So how healthy really was he?
I see what you mean, though.
But
yeah, exactly.
I can't even think to any of and I know that we've had some injury issues. It's hard to remember exactly, but I just can't think off the top of my head that he's ever played the backup because he wanted to.
I think that's as close as it's gotten, Evan, for sure. I just think that happened because they had to start Francouz out of necessity, and we saw him get a shutout. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, now since he's hot, let's ride the hot goalie. But we only started him in the first place because our first guy went down. So I get you, Jackie. You're totally right.
So my point is he going to play it? Well, and Anonin is not Francouz. So is he going to start Anonin by choice in these playoffs? I find that very hard to believe.
I guess there's like one scenario where I see it. I totally agree with you, Jackie. It's not likely, but there is one scenario where I see it, where it's a game like that Nashville game where Georgiev struggles and Anonin comes in and cleans up and the team wins, and they're like, all right, I guess we go back to Anonin one more game and see if he can keep going, and maybe he catches a hot streak and becomes, the next I'm going to say it, but Jordan Binnington or something, where he's a backup his whole career, but then when he catches fire, he becomes a starter. We don't know.
Couldn't do Matt Murray.
I hope he doesn't become anything like Binnington in any other way. But yeah, I just, that's the one scenario where I can see it, where Georgiev is struggling, Anonin comes in and settles things down and gets another start and gets as many starts as it takes for him to fall off, which I think would happen also, and then Georgiev would be back in net. So that's probably about it.
I think in that scenario, the Avs might lose that first game you talk about where Anonin gets pulled, or Georgiev gets pulled for Anonin. So I'm hoping that just doesn't happen. But I agree with you. That's probably the most likely scenario. So where we kind of were headed with this was talking about the Avs and how their goaltenders would stack up against kind of the elite once the playoffs come around. Well, the Avs this week will play the Wild, the Oilers, Stars, and the Jets between now and our next episode next Wednesday. I'm sort of in the ballpark of thinking that if there was a biggest season of the regular, or a week of the regular season, it's probably this week. I'll go back to you, Jackie. Which matchup has you kind of the most excited? Or are you kind of also like me and we're just sort of biding our time to the playoffs and it'll shake out the way it's going to shake out?
Well, I've said many times I don't care about winning the division, so to me this is kind of like exhibition. It's like whatever. But
Mhm.
I do see that we're going to play um some interesting matchups. Specific to me, I think Dallas, Winnipeg, and um, Vegas. Those are probably the three most interesting ones. You could throw Edmonton in there because they're never another tough playoff test, but that's more of a down the road kind of thing if Edmonton's relevant or not. I think. But of the three, I mean, if you care about winning the division, this Dallas game is going to be your biggest game. And if we are going down the road at all of a goalie controversy, then if Annunen starts that game, then I'm like,
Oh
wow,
no.
this
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Good
this is
point.
interesting. Like it is interesting anyway because like Georgiev's getting like a whole week off here basically. I was a little surprised that Annunen started Columbus. Bednar can say it was scheduled. I mean, only scheduled if they were scheduling him a week off. Like it's kind of
It's
interesting.
yeah, scheduled
He
and
got
then confirmed. Yeah.
that he
Well,
plays that game, and then supposedly Annanen's gonna play the Minnesota game, and then Georgiev won't play till Edmonton, which is it's a back to back, so it's gonna go either way. But
I will say though, the pattern recently has been two Georgiev games, one Annunen game, and the Nashville game technically was a Georgiev game. It became an
right,
Annunen game, so he
but then
did go
it
2-1. Georgiev played New York and Nashville, and then Annunen got Columbus. But now they're going two Annunens in a row after playing a half game. So it is interesting because they're playing
Yep.
Annunen tomorrow at Minnesota.
right
Hmm.
exactly. So it's like 2.5 in a row, and the back to back
Mm-hmm.
was gonna make it happen anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
if Georgiev plays that Sunday game against Dallas, and it's kind of like he's back in the driver's seat, I guess you could say. But
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm curious about. Like, what are they going to do about the goaltending here? To me, that's the biggest game. If you care about winning the division, that's the one. That's a big one because you
Yeah.
probably need to win that one if you want to win the division. But otherwise, I'm interested. Like, I'm going to the Winnipeg game. I think that could be an interesting one. But it kind of is what it is at this point too.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. That's why I titled the episode "Biding Our Time" because I know it's important and it will dictate kind of how the playoffs shake form. But I'm just like, as just a fan, I'm like, okay, let's get on with it. It's playoff time. I'm ready to roll. And Evan, I just realized that like we asked you a question, like you've been here the whole show, but you popped in a little bit earlier. So Evan, Mr. Managing Editor, thank you so much for joining Mile High Hockey Lab today. Our best guest ever, maybe.
Oh my gosh. I'm not joking when I say I was driving home behind somebody with a license plate that said on it, and that was me trying to get home in time for the show. So my apologies that I was late.
No, safety
but-
first.
Yeah, then teamwork. So never apologize.
But I mean, just to kind of touch on the question, though, I mean, like if there's any week that's going to determine your standing heading into the playoffs, it is this week. You have a lot of high caliber matchups against playoff teams, and that's one. I mean, one of them you're chasing in the division, right? And unfortunately, now your fate is kind of out of your own hands with the last couple of losses. So they really need to get advantage of them against these teams that they're fighting for position against, and hope for some help along the way. So. I mean, every Western Conference team, has a tough game here and there. No matter who the Avs face, they are also going to be coming down to the wire pretty much for the most part. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I did do a piece this morning on Mile High Hockey assessing the possible playoff opponents the Avs could face. And, it's looking more and more likely, it feels like at this rate, that it will be Winnipeg. So I point out that game in particular, as a possible playoff preview. And I think more importantly too, is that Winnipeg has had the Avs' number this year. They're 2-0 against them. So the Avs are going to want to get probably at least one before heading into a possible playoff matchup with them.
Yeah. And you know what I think about when I think about this like little, I guess, week as we've been talking and its importance, as I think back as we always do, to the most recent Stanley Cup year. And if I'm not mistaken, and I'm kind of trying to confirm it right now, the Avs lost, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their last 6 heading into the first round against Nashville, who they then swept commandingly. So I'm like, Ezra, are you kind of like me in wondering, like, it's kind of one or two things. Either the Avs are going to make a pretty strong push and win some big games here, or they're going to totally nerf it heading into the first round.
I mean, I see what you mean. I think it's equally possible they go like win loss win loss win loss win loss win loss. You know, I'm not overly worried about it, to be honest. I think Bednar was. I watched Bednar's post practice press conference today, and he was talking about how in the Cup year they lost 4 in a row going into the they had a 4-game losing streak in the last month of the season, and they were like struggling. And then did you just say this? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. They lost 6 to 7
for one split second.
You pulled a Vic Lombardi just now.
Wow, I'm so sorry. I was reading it. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So my bad. But yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't really matter too much to me. They don't have to change. They don't have to turn it on for the playoffs, but they do have to just get their play right, whether they win or lose in the next couple of games. Get their play right, get their heads right, and they'll be okay.
And then, what Bednar said about that was that they won the last game against St. Louis, and it was like he felt like it was a really good, solid win, and so that kind of erased the bad 2 weeks that they had leading up to that. They kind of refocused and was like, this was a good game, this matters, and so that helped them get into the playoffs. So I could see something like that happen again where, it could be a little iffy, but if they finish strong, then that doesn't really make it matter too much.
Yeah, totally. And the last 2 are Vegas and Edmonton, which if you're beating Vegas and Edmonton heading into the playoffs, you're doing something right.
And the thing too is that 2022 run was very different than going into this year. I'm pretty sure the Avs were pretty comfortably top of the Central Division and resting guys, getting ready to go for the playoffs, and just basically didn't want to curse the injury gods pretty much going into the start of the season. Or start of the playoffs rather. So, it's going to be very different than 2022, I think, because the Avs have something to fight for. They're going to try to be chasing something. I think it'll be kind of similar-ish to last year, where the Avs are trying to win the Central Division once again, trying to go for it in the final few games. And if I'm not mistaken, the Avs went on a little streak to end at least last year's regular season. I know they obviously won the last game against Nashville, and I believe they won the night or the game before as well. I don't know. Adrian, have to fact check me on this, but it's very, very, I think very different scenarios when you look at it. So I think that's just something else to consider, at least when it comes to that situation.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And I think you're right about the way the team was constructed and the health thing you mentioned. But I think health is still the focus in this window since the Avs have clinched. You see Nichushkin kind of taking his time to come back to the lineup. If this was important stuff, I think he'd probably be playing tomorrow because it's a division game. And I'm not saying it's not important, but I think in the list of priorities, I think the Avs are more focused on making sure that first game in round 1, they ice a roster that maybe not everyone in the league was truly prepared for. And so that segues me to my next segment, which not next segment, but my next question, which revolves around Andrei Kovalenko, Valeri Nichushkin, and the missing man, Gabriel Landeskog, skating together as the Avs are on the road. And I got a little video, courtesy of our buddy Brendan over here. So here he is skating, Mr. Gabe Landeskog. And I want to get your guys' reaction to kind of what he's doing, what the effort looks like here in this clip. And then I kind of want to ask, and I'll go back to you, Jackie, to start. Kovalenko, do we still think he's going to get a start in the AHL, or is he just going to wait until kind of the last few games here with the Avs? And how are you feeling about Mr. Gabriel Landeskog?
Okay, with Kovalenko, I've been thinking about this. So it's if they really force him playing in Loveland first. Well, it wouldn't be in Loveland, but because they're on the road. Then he wouldn't play. Okay, so they play tonight. Then they play this weekend. And then they don't play until the following weekend, which is kind of unfortunate because I'm not quite sure he's going to be ready to play 2 days from now. And then he'd have to wait a whole nother week. And then if they make him play, it's in Henderson, and they make him play that series in Henderson. It's Friday, Saturday. Well, the Avs play Saturday, Sunday, so they wouldn't make him play 3 in a row. So that takes him out of that whole weekend for the Avs, and so that leaves him with 1 game, which would be the last game against Edmonton. So what I'm saying is, I think if he's ready to play, the Avs should play him. Like, if you look at their schedule, he could be ready, say, by like the next Tuesday when they play. What is that? I don't remember who that is again. But next Tuesday, and then the following weekend, and then the last game against Edmonton. Like, to me, that makes much more sense. But so I don't know. Like, what I'm saying is this: if they totally insist that he has to play for the Eagles, I don't like how this schedule sets up. So my answer is, I think maybe that was their thinking to begin with, but it just doesn't make sense to me to force it. I think just play him on Tuesday and just deal with it. Yeah. Because I think he needs more than 1 game with the Avs. So that would be very unfortunate if he was stuck to just playing 1 game with them.
There was a quote from Schneekloth, the Eagles coach. I can't remember exactly the words of it, but I remember about a week ago when Kovalenko was practicing officially practicing with the Eagles, but not actually practicing with the Eagles. He was like, the quote implied that he had no expectation of Kovalenko ever suiting up for the Eagles.
Gotcha.
So maybe that's how it should be, especially with him now at Family Sports Center, which I think is technically not really allowed, but like, who's really going to care? But with him assigned to the Eagles, he's not really supposed to practice with the Avs.
But I bet it's not considered a practice because it's 3 injured players.
Right. So yeah, is that like a gray area thing? Probably.
Injured. Yeah.
So what I would love to see is him just practice when they come back from the road. So the Avs, let's see, they probably wouldn't practice because then they have the Sunday game. Like, just practice with the Avs when you can. I don't know. Just it doesn't make sense. The Eagles play too much and they don't practice. It's just I always thought it was nonsense that they assigned him there. Just keep him with the Avs, keep him with the staff, and then just play him when he's ready. To me, it just seems like it's forcing too much. So I really hope it doesn't come to that, is what I'm saying. Because if they do, then it sets up where he's only going to get 1 game with the Avs, which sucks.
And I put it in the script as a schematic designation because I think that's what's going on here with Kovalenko. They know he's kind of coming in off of an injury. They can assign him to the Eagles and basically claim he's rehabbing that knee injury, which he very well could be and probably is. And then call him up with like 1 or 2 games left. Because I'm with you, like the way the schedule lines up, this is what led me to the question. Because we've been looking at this schedule, this missing month of April now that I found. And I've decided that, like you said, it just doesn't quite make sense because if you play him in the A, you don't have much time to play him in the NHL. And that's kind of what you want to find out before we get to the playoffs. So I'm with you there, Jackie and Ezra. And Evan, touch a little bit on Kovalenko, if you agree with what you've heard so far. And then let's go back to this glorious video of mine and talk a little bit about the Swedish god that is Gabriel Landeskog.
Well, I mean, I think when you look at those 3 players in particular, I saw people commenting it. What a line that is. Yeah. Holy moly. That would be a great 3rd line if it all worked out down the line. But I agree with the statement of Kovalenko. You know, just the timing is kind of weird. If I'm not mistaken, thinking about it in my head, Jackie, you said that the Eagles go to Henderson, which is near Las Vegas, and that is what, April 12th to 13th or something like that, right? Am I getting those dates right? So
I think you're right.
So Kovalenko could play that Friday, and then the Avs play in Vegas on Sunday. So he could play with the Eagles on Friday and then join the Avs when they come in on Sunday, and just get one game under his belt, I guess. But I don't really see the point in that.
I mean,
Uh,
sure,
so
that could be a possibility. It just one game just seems kind of silly, but
I know
they wouldn't
that's
have
what
him
I'm
do
thinking.
3-3. That's like NHL players don't do 3-3.
Yeah.
So,
So we look at Brandon commenting. It's a money thing.
Hey,
Hey, this is your video, Brandon. Thanks, man. He says it's a money thing for Kovalenko. What are your guys' thoughts to that?
well, I think that's crap because it's like $50,000. They can't just pay the guy.
Well, it also makes a roster spot available for call-ups like Foodie and Wagner, which ended up being needed. So I think it makes sense. They just kept roster flexibility, basically.
Well,
Mhm.
after the deadline, there's no roster limit. So
I am corrected.
I
who
mean,
knows?
yes-
Who knows?
yes,
I
it
will.
adds up on the salary cap, but you also could put Logan O'Connor on LTIR because he's not going to play again. So
Yeah.
to me, I don't know. I just think it's cheap, it's petty, it's dumb. Just I never thought why it made sense from an adjustment standpoint. Just keep him where he needs to be and get comfortable. And if you end up having to pay it's like $50,000 or something, it's just so insignificant. Just give the guy the money. I don't.
And I
yeah.
hate when my
think it's
salary is
silly.
considered insignificant.
Well, I mean,
No, I know what you're saying.
Put me in a whole nother bracket.
they could find it. And I guess
Here-
I didn't give my answer about Landy. It's like it's nice seeing back on the ice. I mean, quietly he wasn't on the ice for a month,
Mhm.
but like supposedly he just skated 20 minutes slow going. I mean, cool. That's good that he could do that, but it doesn't change my opinion that I don't think he's playing this season, regardless how far they get in the playoffs.
Yeah, this video made me sad. He looks like my 65-year-old dad out there. It's discouraging. He needed to be skating a lot harder than that at this point to
Yeah.
be playing in the
Well,
playoffs.
we talked about that, right? We said that this was probably the week, actually last week was probably the week that we needed to see him like really vigorously participating in skates, not necessarily contact skates, but like participating and going full out. And this definitely isn't that. And we're kind of a week removed from that window that we talked about. Evan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna say this video is definitely not the best when you see it. There was another video that Brennan posted, and it was him skating backwards in what was the actual drill called? It was like C or U something. I don't know. Brennan is in here. That was it. C
Yeah,
cut.
Brennan's in the comments telling us this was just Landy's warm-up. So
Yeah.
there's something to be positive about there.
Yes, so the C cut skating is another clip that I saw, and that was a little bit harder for sure. And that is more testing on the knee.
Let me see if I can find that.
That is more testing on the knee than obviously that clip was showing for Landeskog for sure. But I'm unfortunately in agreement with you all that I just don't see it happening this year for him. Unfortunately, as much as it sucks to say, and maybe here for Avalanche fans, it is in the long run, I think, the right thing to do because you still have to worry about next season trying to come back then even, right? That's at the tail end of the 12 to 16 month recovery from the surgery, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you'd be a little more willing to give that more of a test, more of a go in preseason hockey and training camp versus game one of the Western Conference Finals or game one of the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah. So
I guess my only counter argument to that is just if you are going to commit $7 million of your cap to him, I guess you would like to see, can he play before making that decision? But I mean, it's just, they're just going to be so cautious.
My thing is we might be kind of nearsighted. When I think about this now about it is we might be thinking, man, I really want Landeskog to play round one. This might be truly a scenario where they're he's the only way, and they've said later rounds, but I think the truth is the only way he plays this year is if it's game 5 of the Stanley Cup final. And I think it's in a way where it's he is finally getting to skate in round 1 and round 2 in a way where we're oh shit, it might be on. They hold him off until they see if it's really worth icing him and risking what you say, Evan, which is giving him a go in the playoffs if if he's practicing well and the Avs are in the position to where bringing him in might help, and I mean bringing Gabe Landeskog even into the bottom 6 should probably help if he's actually healthy. So like that might be the more, I guess, realistic, if there is a realistic approach to this. I think that's probably now where we sit now, much more likely than anything else, really. Ezra, thank you. You found the video. I appreciate you.
Mhm.
I'll bring that up here in a second. But let's move on into our breakaway challenge, where I kind of want to talk about a new acquisition for the Avs that, to me, in my opinion, has proved himself and proved his worth already. And that's Mr. Sean Walker. And I'm going to present it to you all in the breakaway challenge, as I've mentioned. And I kind of want to put it this way. Has Sean Walker, in your mind, already earned himself a contract with the Avalanche? Obviously, he'll probably get one. But the question is, has he earned one as we sit today? And if he hasn't, what is it that you're kind of waiting for or looking for in order to make you feel very confident in giving Mr. Sean Walker a new contract? So I'm putting the countdown up here, and I'm going to start it over so that I can give the requested 1 minute and full 1 minute to everyone. But before we do that, let's run that track.
The breakaway challenge.
All right, and so the way that this works is, you heard the question. Now each member of our panel has a minute to stake their claim as to yes or no, and I give them points if I think the claim is at least valid. I don't necessarily have to agree with it, but it has to be something that I see as kind of like a good point, I guess. So we'll start with Jackie again. How about that, Jackie?
Okay.
Sound good?
Sure.
Oh, she's not excited. All right. Well, let's go back to the question a little bit just so I can rehash it. So currently, Sean Walker's making $2.6 million AAV, and thank you for the correction on the script, Jackie. Do you think he's already earned a lucrative extension? And if not, what do you need to see? And your time starts now.
Well, one way or another, they're going to need a top 4 defenseman, so I guess he's the one. When he didn't sign with Philadelphia, it was very widely known that he was looking for about $5 million, and supposedly the Philly was okay with the money, but they couldn't agree on term. It was Walker was insisting on 5 years, and Philly would only go 4 years. So that's what's going to take her to retain him. I think the Avs are aware of this, and when they're thinking about replacing Byram, they should pretty much have already decided to do this. The big play would be they need to trade Manson. They need to recoup some assets to free up the money and give that money, the 4.5, to Walker, so they can have a top 4 defenseman in their lineup next year. So hopefully that's the strategy and that's the play. As far as like Walker's play, it doesn't sway me either way because they need a top 4 caliber defenseman one way or the other. So it's not him. It's going to be someone else.
Oh, that was good. That was perfect. So good, Jackie. I don't want to agree or disagree with you or say anything because I don't want to steal the next person's points, but that's an excellent round there. I gave you five total points. Which one of you gentlemen would like to go next? Who's ready?
I'll do it. I'm ready. I may have been late, but I read the script beforehand, and I have some thoughts on this.
All right, so I'll reiterate the question. Sean Walker, has he earned a lucrative contract already? And if not, in your mind, what does he need to do in the future in order to do so? Evan, your time starts now.
I don't think he has yet. And it's not mostly, and I don't think it's necessarily because of something he has or hasn't done. I think it's more so that you have to focus elsewhere. You have to look at Casey Middlestat and focus on that 2C role acquisition. You traded a lot for him, for Bowen Byram, and you really need to fill that hole for the future. And Middlestat is that. And I think that he's going to be the one that's going to be focused more. And when I look at things more defensively, I think the Avs already have a top 4 with Girard and Manson already there. And you can fill in that third D with guys like Malinsky, Caleb Jones getting in more. Maybe Jack Johnson signs on for another year. Who knows? But I just think that there are more options on defense that could better suit the Avalanche and trying to, continue their ways of being cheap, as we've seen with the goaltenders already and their AAV. And I think that that's a better way for them to go about it than versus then trying to fit $5 million for Walker along with $7 million for Landeskog and so on and so forth.
Nice.
They're going to be taking a big step back then.
Jackie, we should just do like a whole show where we only talk about Casey Middlestat, Bowen Byram, and Sean Walker, because we could fill an hour with that topic. I absolutely guarantee it. But Evan, I gave you one last point because of how you mentioned fitting it in with Landeskog, because that is an important factor in my mind, and that puts you over the top of the leaderboard with 6 points. So Ezra, we're clipping right around that 6 points per minute as we typically do here on the Breakaway Challenge. But I think last week you had like 8 or 9. So I think it's looking pretty good. Same question, my friend. Sean Walker, has he earned a lucrative contract already in your mind? If not, what does he need to do in order to earn that said contract? And your 1 minute starts now.
Well, I think his play on the ice has demonstrated that he's clearly a fit in this system. He's been a force offensively. He almost had a hat trick one night. He's scored big goals. He's played good defense. He's been an effective player on a penalty kill that's given up 1 goal since he got here. So, I think I'm still right about that. Maybe it's 2 at this point. But he's been very, very good. But I have to agree with Evan. I just don't think that the money is there for him right now. So. Ultimately, if he is supposed to be that top 4 guy that makes $5 million a year, then he has to outplay Josh Manson. And I haven't seen that necessarily. They play such different styles. It's not an easy thing for him to do. And then you think about who's coming for the Avalanche, who could take that job on the bottom pair. And Sam Malinsky's exciting, like Evan said, but also let's not forget Sean Barron's potentially could be in the mix for that bottom pair job. If they see Sean Barons as an NHLer on a cheap deal, maybe that means there is money for Walker as a third pairing defenseman, but it's hard to find that money in the way that the roster's constructed right now.
Yeah, money.
I just don't believe Manson's top 4.
Yeah,
he's not. Well he doesn't get usage as top 4. He hasn't ever with the Avs. He's not a top 4 defenseman.
I think there's 2 Josh Mansons though. I think there's the regular season, probably not always healthy, Josh Manson, and then there's the playoff Josh Manson. And I think stylistically, the way the playoffs shift fits Josh Manson, whereas
where he plays even less.
Well, I think he plays less, but it's more about the situations in which he's playing in. I think it's really when the Avs need to have a physical presence in front of the net, which typically is around crunch time. In the playoffs, like when other teams are down a goal and they're just trying to muck it up right in front of the net, like you need, especially this Avs D group needs a body like Manson and a body like Jack Johnson. Now that's not to say like you just need to be big and he's big and that's why he's valuable. I just think, we saw it in the Stanley Cup run, which is what earned him a contract. He was in the right place at the right time most of the time defensively. In fact, one of the coolest moments of the Stanley Cup was his save with Kemper way out of the net, and there he was to stop the puck from going in the Stanley Cup final. So I think that's what we have to consider with Josh Manson in terms of him being a top 4. I don't think he's a top 4, like you mentioned, Jackie, in terms of ice time or opportunity, but I think he's a top 4 when you think about who you want on the ice in the most crucial moments of a crucial game. I think that's when he sneaks his way into the top 4 defenders.
And just to add a statistical element to it, since Walker's been here, Walker and Manson have right around 30% of possible ice time.
Okay.
They're both roughly equivalent. Walker is a little bit ahead at 31, and Josh is at 29. And that's just like of the ice time that has been played by defensemen. How much did these 2 players get, or how much did this player get? That's what that measure is. So they're roughly equivalent. I'm surprised to see that they're roughly equivalent in offensive zone starts too. They're being used about the same. Is all I'm going to say. But Walker has been better on the penalty kill than Manson, who allegedly is here to do that. So that's not
allegedly.
That's not great.
Well, you can get a guy like Joel Edmondson or something to spend $2 million. Get
No.
get your big strong
Yeah,
guy
yeah,
for the net
face.
front.
I'm sorry, Ezra's face was just really funny.
He said no.
Hey, I'm not saying I like the guy. I'm just saying if you really feel like you need that guy.
No,
Well,
And
that's the thing with
Malinsky,
Manson, though, because Manson is like the good, capable version of that player, and Edmondson
and he
is
also
the worst
costs a
of it.
lot. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's
obviously,
expensive. Yeah.
you probably can't have both Walker and Manson, but I'd rather see them get assets for Manson and keep Walker, who I think is better suited to that role long term, than just let Walker walk for nothing and then
I like
keep
that too.
Manson in probably an overpaid role. And then as far as Malinsky, like he probably will be on the team next year because he's cheap, but like you cannot expect a ton from him. Like he went back to Loveland and he scored like 2 points, and part of that is because it's the Eagles and it's the AHL, and I'm not saying like he's just not good, but I think you got to look at the whole picture. Where if he's your number 6 guy next year, that you're probably ahead, and like they don't care about anybody else. Like no way is Barron's going to play on the team. They don't care about young players. Not an option.
Yeah, I see how you feel that way being a Bowen Byram fan, but we digress. I'm
That has
with
nothing
you.
to do with him. It's you need a top 4
Well,
defenseman.
he's an example.
Sorry.
He's an example of what you just said, that they don't care necessarily about young players. I don't know. I
Well,
wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but maybe
I
you do.
would.
don't
I
know.
wasn't thinking about him and saying that. I'm thinking of all the prospects that have come and gone that
Yeah,
have never had a job.
fair.
So
That's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair. I agree with you there.
No,
internal
definitely.
replacements is never the answer for any position.
Especially with defensive prospects, they are
Yep.
trade chips.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you also don't put prospects. You don't think of them in the bottom pair role, the penalty kill. That
Right.
you think of
There's-
like old guys in that, so you don't think of like young guys. So
Brennan
Malinsky
said,
is
sorry,
going to be.
Brennan said Malinsky skating with Middleton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say
that doesn't
Hey.
help either. Like I said, I know some of his circumstance isn't amazing, but I think his production is very short. Time with the Avs has gotten people a little hyped on him, and I just kind of think a little dose of reality needs to be taken. But I do think that he's basically going to be on the team next year, but he is not going to be counted on for much.
Well, I
Yeah.
like the dose of reality thing you're saying, because that's why I posed this as the breakaway challenge with Sean Walker, because I often exist in La La Land, and in my mind I'm like, Sean Walker's the perfect fit for that whatever defender you're looking for in the lineup, because he just fits what Bednar wants from a defender so well. And I agree with you in thinking, Jackie, that like if you're gonna have to find cash, trading that Manson contract is a good way to find it. But like you mentioned, and like I said earlier, you still have to find kind of that body, that style of somebody who's going to clear the front of the net, to me. And maybe we find that elsewhere or internally as well. But it's like Malinsky, maybe not. Not in my mind. Gerard is physical, but not a net front physical presence by any stretch. Jack Johnson kind of is, but who knows if he comes back. So when you look at the D group, and Makar is Makar, like he does everything, but not super well known for his acumen in the net front. So I still think, just like we've seen how valuable it is on the power play offensively to have Nichushkin working in front of the net, I think conversely, it's just as important to have that defender who can on the PK work in front of the net. So if and Ezra, you said allegedly that's what Manson does. I understand.
I don't think
been rough.
anybody on this team does that, to be honest. Like I just
The
don't
most
think
of-
crease clearing is a thing anymore. Like they don't even
Yeah.
cover down low on the penalty kill.
The most effective penalty kill defensemen for the Avalanche are Taves and Gerard, and both of them do Walker now. Walker is excellent also. But for all season, both of them do it by just getting in passing lanes. They're not moving bodies.
Yeah.
And Walker is the same.
Well, I just think that that's true in the regular season, but that the style just changes in the playoffs. Just ice is harder to come by, and that's true. I think even on the PK, I think the focus on the PK can kind of shift from we should be aggressive and maybe get a shorthanded goal and then in the playoffs it turns into we need to get in front of every single puck. And I think that shift in focus makes a guy like Manson more valuable because he's good at that, at least.
Yeah, I think that's something none of us touched on. That like truly, if he's going to earn his contract with or earn a contract with Colorado, it's going to be in this playoffs because
Yes.
he had a very good regular season, but he also is not very far removed from being the odd man out on a Los Angeles blue line that was not particularly great. So, there's a lot more for him to prove still, I think. But he's been an amazing fit so far. I hope it holds up in the playoffs.
I feel like the
they make
Avs
it work.
knew when they got him. Like
Oh,
they had
yeah.
already made the decision because, like I said, it was known what he's looking for. So
Yeah.
there's no mystery. Like that's what it's going to take to keep him.
That makes sense.
If they didn't think it was so critical, then why
Such a chip.
need that replacement?
Yeah.
Like the Middlestat trade was so dependent on them getting this trade and getting that defenseman. If it wasn't that important, like they can just live without it moving forward, then why was it that important?
They needed that position filled this year. If
But
they were
don't
to
next
go
year?
into next year. Well, no, they will next year. But if they were to go into next year saying, let's see if Malinsky's that guy, and then at the trade deadline we can bring somebody else in if necessary. It's not really their style, but it's possible.
Yeah.
It's just a thought.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there too, but I agree with Jackie. Like even McFarland said, like we weren't going to make this trade unless we knew we had Walker coming in, which just makes sense. You can't get rid of a guy like Bowen Byram without at least finding a replacement to an extent. And that's what it took to get Casey Middlestat. So like that's why those two trades kind of hit almost at the same time because they were kind of contingent upon each other. But we are like doing so well. We have so much to say today that we have like 9 minutes and we are still yet to get to bold predictions. But Ezra, you won with no. Yeah, Ezra, you won with 7 points. You did.
Right.
You did. So you get to pick the winner segment. What you got for us today?
Oh, well, I think let's just use the winter segment to talk about Chris Wagner a little bit. I've been a fan of his game. I was surprised that I was a fan of his game because when they signed him, I was like, oh, okay, AHL guy we won't see, and if we do see, it'll be another reincarnation of what's his name? Oh man, any of the AHL forwards.
Any of them. There's so many.
There's one specifically who I'm picturing, but I can't remember his name. He ended up playing a lot of games for, I think, it doesn't matter. But
So like Dryden Hunt.
No, not Dryden Hunt. No, he came from Dallas. He went to someone in Canada. Sheldon Dries.
Oh,
yeah.
That's like my all-time least favorite.
Yeah, exactly. But no, and then Wagner really surprised me with his play so far, and I liked him in the Columbus game enough. He obviously scored the goal, but he also was effective all over the ice, I thought. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on him getting another year?
Yeah, I was going to say he's signed now through the 2024-25 season. All I had that it was a 1-year deal. Does anybody have figures on that yet?
Cap Friendly has it at $775, the same contract.
But I think that's a placeholder. Like it has the exclamation. Then they're just guessing. Then they don't know what it is. I mean, it probably is cheap. It probably will be that or very close to that. I don't really care about the AAV. I'm curious if it's one way or two way. With him signing it this early, probably is a one way. I mean, I haven't minded him, but it's also hasn't been how many games he played, like 10. Like it's still kind of the honeymoon period. I agree, he hasn't bothered me like Dries or any of the others, but it's still, I don't know. My opinion might change when I have to watch him 70 times. And I don't know if I want him as the set or forget 4C. Kind of, I don't know. Hope they aim higher, which I know the money's running out. So can they even aim higher? Is he better than Olofsson and Kivi Ranta and them? Maybe. I don't know.
I'd say he's probably better than Kivi Ranta. And you were right, Jackie. It's been 10 games. The most he's played in any game was 11 minutes against Nashville. He did have a goal against Columbus in what's likely the worst loss of the season for the Avalanche, maybe depending on your opinion. But he also had an assist against Dallas on February 27. So, I mean, it says something that he gets the contract. It says something that he's basically played every game with the Avs since February 18th until now. except for that little window in March. But I don't know. To me, it's more logistic, kind of like cleanup, spring cleaning than anything else. It's just the Avs kind of like stockpiling that fringe AHL forward pool, knowing that next year they're going to potentially lose 3 or 4 of the guys that are currently filling that role right now. So I don't necessarily know if it has much to do. Like, he's shown that he's serviceable in that regard, and I think that's what's earned him a contract. And they know they can probably get him cheaper than maybe some of the other guys that they have in their system currently. What are your thoughts, though, Evan?
Yeah, I'm kind of similar with Jackie, that he hasn't really bothered me that much, and he's for lack of a better term, he kind of seems invisible on the ice for the most part until he shows up and scores a goal, which great. I mean, that's great, and at least you have that touch, right? Yeah. And at least different from Sheldon Dries, he didn't get injured 1 minute into his NHL debut and then get shipped off to Boston. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't Wagner come to Colorado off of that Dries trade, or am I thinking?
No,
he was thinking of somebody else.
He was picked up off of waivers in like one of the Wall years. I don't remember exactly which year, but one of those years. He for Anaheim, and the Avs picked him up on waivers, and he played like a while. I think it was like 30 or 40 games. I remember he played at the outdoor game at Coors Field. That was like his last game with the Avs, and then they sent him back to Anaheim, which I always thought was funny because then he signed an extension with Anaheim. So we like totally just borrowed this guy, and then he went back where he came from and stayed there. But I guess the Avs remembered they liked him when he became available last summer.
Boston after that, he was good for the Bruins, I believe.
Yeah, he's definitely been
he
more
plays for Abbotsford now.
Dries,
yeah, I know. Trust me, I know.
I mean,
Vancouver got better when they got rid of the players they should have.
Yeah.
I mean, though, regardless, going back to the question though, like I could see Chris Wagner being 4C. I kind of hope that's not the case. Like Jackie said as well, I do hope that they go for something else. But I understand that this is a business and money's tight, and sometimes you have to work with what you got. So I guess we'll see by the time July 1st comes around this summer.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's good to just get anything out of the way. I agree with that. Like you have to do something. You have to start getting some of these contracts signed.
Yeah, I was gonna say we haven't been doing him any favors with our analogies, because I'm about to add another maybe mean one, but I don't mean to be mean, no disrespect. But he's like, you went and got some canned goods. You threw the canned goods in the cupboard. You're probably not gonna eat them this week, but you know that they're there in case you need them, in case the power goes out and you need that 4C. There he is. So I'm with you. It's probably the one way because of just the way that this contract has been early. So we'll see how it pans out. I think next year, if we see a lot of Wagner in the playoffs, like, it's probably going to be a short stay. Not to be rude, but that's just the way it is in my mind. So,
but if Trennan comes back, is he like, I think he has to hit waivers too. So actually, that could be another reason why they sign him now, is if they intend to waive him when Trennan gets back, then it's less attractive.
Which might explain why there's not much detail on the AAV and all that too.
Well, I think when Cap Friendly gets around it, we're not the Leafs or the Habs. They get immediate information when it gets time in the evening when Cap Friendly updates some of these details, because if you guys signed ELCs today, it'll be in there. Which, by the way, can we sign Cal Ritchie? Can we just reward the kid?
My God.
Wouldn't that be nice? I'd like to see that happen.
Especially now that you mentioned that contracts don't go against the number. I'm like, what are we waiting for then?
Yeah, Barron's
yeah. Well, Barron's has to finish his season, so I get that. We'll see what happens with the DU. But you could all his teammates are signing. Like, it has to cut. Like, he's not dumb. He's just kind of like, hey,
Yeah, I'm over here. Yeah.
Yeah, like, what? Why not me? I just think it's so silly the way the Avs wait like this. Like, I get it when he wasn't signed last summer, fine, but he's earned it at this point. Like, don't embarrass the kid. Just give him the contract.
Well, Central Scouting will have their last meeting, I think, this week. So they'll kind of release a new rankings of the college prospects, which might be what maybe even Cal Ritchie's camp is waiting on, because I think he'll get a bump in that. So I'm like, we'll see how it works out. I was gonna ask if there's anyone in the NCAA that's unsigned that you guys have your eye on, but I'm
No,
scared.
I haven't watched NCAA this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
And,
Fair enough.
and
I'm looking at
after the
kid,
way
but
that
I don't know.
Yeah,
and after the way that the Myers situation went, I'm not really like
You
pining
checked
for
out?
that.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Well,
have to wonder if college free agents are looking at the Avs like, no one
No,
made
thank
the
you.
league, so no thanks.
why? So you could play me for the last week before the playoffs, and then for like 10 games the next regular season, then waive me? Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, he got 59. I mean, they made good on their promise. They gave the guy 59 games over 2 years. You
That's
can
true.
look
That's
at
fair.
you can look. The Avs prospects do not get that, so they made good on that part of it. But I'm not excited to go down that road. Yeah,
Well,
for someone else.
I like that as a winner segment, Ezra, because you took
Yes.
one of the topics from later in the show and you
Yeah.
repurposed our time, and it was genius. So thank you for doing
Thank
that.
you.
That leaves us with our bold predictions. But right before we do our bold predictions, I just want to mention that, as Evan mentioned earlier, the Owls will be playing the Vegas Golden Knights on April 14th. And what's going to be kind of cool is, much like I think it's True City Greens or whatever it is, the animated follow along broadcast that we've seen from TNT. We're going to get one from True TV and Max for the Avalanche versus Golden Knights game on April 14th. It'll be animated and followed using the Edge software. And on their graphic, they've got like Batman and Bugs Bunny and Daphne from Scooby-Doo. So if you got kids...
there might be people like me. I have absolutely no idea what this is. Like, how does a regular person access this?
So
like,
let's see.
What channel? What platform? What do you have to sign up for? Is it free?
So TNT, I'll read you the line from NHL.com. TNT Sports, Warner Bros. Games, and NHL are joining forces to bring viewers a clash of excellence in hockey and real-time animation for the first time ever in Multiverse NHL Face-Off on Sunday, April 14th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, exclusively on True TV and Max's and Bleacher Report Sports add-on. So basically, if you have HBO Max and the Bleacher Report Sports add-on, you can watch it. And then if you have cable and have access to True TV, there will be an alternate broadcast with animated characters instead of Cale Makar's. So that'll be kind of cool. If you got kids like me, I can kind of like be like, oh no, babe, we're watching kids TV, and I'm over here watching the Avalanche. So if you're into that sort of thing, check it out. Should be pretty fun. But let's just go straight into our bold predictions now. And we have some to rehash from last week. Oh, and wouldn't you know, there's an animal on Evan's screen. We almost made it. We almost made it. So last week, Jackie, you said that Sam Girard would be the next defender to score. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. It was Devon Taves. Evan, last week you said the bottom six would combine for 5 points. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, although Parise, Trenin, and Duheim had 3 points in that window. So we got halfway there, not too shabby. And then lastly, I said Miles Wood and Ross Colton would have goals.
Hold on. I want to protest, because Chris Wagner technically gets a point. So that's be 4, but am I missing one? I don't know. I was about to go check.
So Chris was that the day before or after our show?
That was 2 days ago.
It was 2 days ago. Columbus.
That was 2 days ago, dude. Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So then it's 4. You're correct. That's right. You're 4. And then, I mean, if you want to really,
I'm gonna go check because I haven't looked. I'm gonna
Walker
check.
had a goal. I mean, that's not necessarily the bottom 6, but
no, I would not count that.
Yeah. So I still think, I'm sorry, Evan, but I'm pretty sure you're still wrong. You are more than welcome to protest. Please submit to the complaints department, which you can find at www.pleasedon'tsendmeanything-because-I-won't-actually-read-it.com, and I will let you know how it worked out for you. But lastly, like I said, I had Miles Wood and Ross Colton score goals. That was something that didn't happen, and the Avs are really desperate for those two guys to get back on that Logan or Colton Wood train, even though they don't have the Logan part or the O part anymore. So hopefully that can happen in the near future as the Avs wind towards the playoffs. But let's run that bold predictions track.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
I call that phone talk.
All right. So we went over last week. It's been, I think, 2 weeks since, no, just one. We had a ding the week before. But let's see if we can get a ding this week. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in today. This is the Mile High Hockey Lab, and I am here with Ezra, Evan, and Jackie. We've got about 216 live viewers, which is pretty awesome. We really appreciate you all for tuning in and supporting a program like ours. We all do it from the bottom and the pure depths of our heart. But Jackie, let's start with you. What's your bold prediction this week?
I guess my prediction is that the Avs won't score a power play goal until Nichushkin does.
That's really good.
Oh
Mine
my
was gonna be the
goodness.
same thing.
Oh my gosh. So
Or I
Avs won't
guess you
score until
Or I guess you
Nichushkin
could
does.
think about it as he will score the next power play goal.
Yeah, one or the other. I like the way you put it in the first place. 'Cause I
Yeah.
think it's more
Because if he
telling
doesn't
of,
play in the Minnesota game, then I'm basically saying I don't think they score a power play goal in that game either.
well, they asked Bednar on that same morning show I referenced earlier, Altitudes, like if he ever contemplates changing up his strategy when Nichushkin is not in the game. And
He might need to.
I was like, oh my God, that is like a
actually
ridiculous
a good
question,
question.
but it tells you so much about the way he impacts the Avalanche, especially like we talked about his power play.
And I haven't
presence.
listened to it yet. What was his answer? Probably no.
No, yeah, his answer was no, we don't do anything like that. We kind of play our same system every single night. I don't believe
Well,
him.
he probably should.
Yeah, I don't believe him. I think that was more of an ode and a kind of like nod to the rest of the guys on the roster that he didn't kind of want to single out nuke and or make the other dudes feel like what the hell. But I imagine, like we mentioned, Casey Middlestat isn't Valerian Nichushkining it on the power play in that bumper position. In fact, I was going to mention this and totally forgot, but sometimes I feel like Druin or McKinnon and Rantanen, whoever it is on the wing, it's just like totally looking around Middlestat when he's in that bumper position. Like, dude, get out of the way. I'm trying to do that cross eyes to the one timer.
Well, the bumper is dumb anyway. I'm surprised. I actually surprised they're not using Lehkonen on it because remember when they came back from
Agreed.
the break, Lehkonen
point.
had like 3 of their 4 power play goals over like that
Mhm.
month. So I don't understand why like it's not his because
Yeah.
he's proven successful there. I mean, we could do a whole show. I mean, complaining about the power play. Just there's so much about it that doesn't make sense.
Oh, Ezra got me a note in the private chat that says Duhaime was playing on the second line when he got his assist too, Evan. So why don't you
That's
why don't you just
true.
check yourself before you wreck yourself, dog?
No, I was gonna rescind my protest anyway. So it's okay.
No, I love it.
It's good
I
though.
love it.
Checks and balances are
I
good.
was gonna say I'm wrong way too often to be standing over here and be like, no, sir.
I thought I did. But it's okay. It's fine.
All right, well that's okay. What's your bold prediction this week?
My bold prediction, I've been sitting on this one for a while. You're coming down to the end of the season with the biggest games coming up before the playoffs. And I would hope anyway that your team is a little bit angry and frustrated after losing away to Columbus. So I think they're going to respond in kind by sweeping the week before our next show.
Mm.
That would be the story of the NHL going into the playoffs is the Avs coming on strong against the league's best because that's what they got coming at them in the next week. I'm kind of mostly Western Conference focused, but still, that's who they're going to be playing in the playoffs. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Sweep next week. Man, that means wins over Minnesota, Edmonton, Dallas, and Winnipeg. Huge.
Minnesota, Edmonton, Dallas, and Minnesota again.
Oh,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Winnipeg
really?
will be next, not this Saturday, but the following.
See?
So we'll have a
Wrong
show
just
before then.
now.
But still, that's still
Still huge.
four good games. I mean,
Yeah.
4 in a row would be pretty big.
Well, Winnipeg can't win, so it's less and less of an important game as Winnipeg goes down the stretch. They're scaring me. Because that's the kind of team that like sucks all the way until the round 1, and then all of a sudden they're just like a brand new team because they're in the playoffs and they get to start fresh. So who knows how it works out with matchups, but I'm nervous in general when it comes to the playoffs. But Evan, I like that bold prediction. They're going to go sweep next week. Ezra, what do you got for me?
I love Jackie's. I was going to talk about Nichushkin on the power play too, but I've got my backup ready to go, and it's going to make us a little bit less nervous about needing our backup because I think Georgiev is going to get a shutout in Dallas.
Ooh, that'd be huge.
That would be awesome.
That
Quite
would
a
definitely be a statement.
Yes, exactly. That's the kind of thing that you need. Like I know people kind of scoff and sort of mock fans who talk about like momentum and confidence, but like goaltending to me, that's so important. And yeah, statement shutout against the Dallas Stars heading into the playoffs will go a long way towards reestablishing, if there needs to be a reestablishment of Gorgiev's confidence. So I love that one. So far we got Avs don't score a power play goal until Nuke does from Jackie. We got Evan predicts a sweep next week, and Ezra predicting a Gorgiev shutout against Dallas. And so that just leaves me, and my bold prediction is that Kovalenko will play against Vegas and he will score
That would be pretty awesome too.
In 2 weeks.
in 2
Okay.
weeks.
Okay.
Cool.
Ezra,
Cool.
I just wanted to clarify. We
thank
don't all
God
think
you're
that they're
here.
playing
Thank
Vegas
God
this
all
week.
of you are here today. So let's do one that will resolve this week, but that'll be my long shot one that we
All
sometimes
right,
do.
sick.
All right, sick. One that will resolve this week is how about, since we got one shutout, how about we get another one, but this time from Ananin? That's what we're gonna go against.
Oh, yeah.
Ananin
Dual
shutout
shutouts?
against the Wild, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be nice too.
Because we're over here trying to manifest like we sometimes do, and most times do, and so why not just?
I tried to manifest Kale scoring on the power play. It didn't work.
Yeah.
All
So
I'll
now we're
say,
moving on to Nichushkin.
all I'll say is if those two happen, all three of us are feeling real good
Yeah.
for
Yep.
ours.
Agreed. And we'll start clipping our earlier segment when we were talking crap about the goalies, and we'll be like, see, we were totally wrong about that. But look, we made bold predictions that said they were going to be great. So look at us go. But thank you, folks, so much for tuning in. And thank you to the three of you for joining me as usual here in the Mile High Hockey Lab. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please head on over to our website, milehighhockey.com. We have a gaggle of contributors that write previews and opinion pieces and recaps. We pretty much got you covered if it's Avs related, and sometimes we even cover some other NHL related stuff. So please go over there, give us some clicks and stuff like that, and also please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure you download those episodes. It goes a long way. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn your alerts on. Signing off from the Mile High Hockey Lab. Go Avalanche.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hockey Lab.